Well, my name is Bruce Becker, and I am a physician. My medical specialty is physical medicine and rehabilitation. I am the director of the National Aquatics and Sports Medicine Institute at Washington State University and a clinical professor of rehabilitation medicine at the University of Washington as well. I've been in the field of medicine for a series of decades and have been amazed at the effects that water has on the human body. So what we started looking at Washington State was what happens with immersion in various temperatures, because the literature on that was lacking. I mean, these are really basic questions. You come home after a long day of brutal work and pour yourself a hot bath, or if you're fortunate enough to have a hot tub, and you sink in, and there's this kind of process. Well, there's got to be a physiologic reason for that. I mean, it is universal. And so we started to try and figure out what the physiologic reasons for that were, and realized that there really are potent biologic changes that happen. Mother Nature is always in the process of trying to repair and restore. And there are really critical physiologic processes that are triggered by that. But isn't it fascinating that during the period of our lives when repair, regeneration, remodeling, restoration happens most actively, we're comfortably immersed in a full warm water, total immersion environment for 9 months. And then the bad stuff happens. Then you kind of get off out of the womb, and you have to cope with life and all its bitter realities. Well, I think what we showed in some of our work at Washington State University was that warm water immersion seems to mimic a whole lot of the kind of physiologic processes that probably happened during that prenatal period of life. I mean, what happens within the central nervous system is fascinating. The body regulates itself in some really interesting ways. It has a lot of conscious awareness of what's going on around us, the temperature, all of that kind of stuff, the light, whatever. But it also has a whole lot of subconscious activity that have to go on in deep background, kind of like the operating system on your computer. You don't want to know what it's doing. You just want to know that it works. And so things like your heart rate, your respiratory rate, a whole bunch of cognitive functions, your endocrine function, all of those kinds of things are regulated at a subconscious level. And that subconscious level is called the autonomic nervous system, and it has two components. It has the sympathetic component and the parasympathetic component, and they act as a balancing process. The sympathetic component is often called the flight or fight component, and it's responsible to keep us alive in the event of sudden stressors. It's built to enable the body to respond actively and aggressively to escape and avoid stress. So when the sympathetic system is escalated, your heart rate goes up, your respiratory rate goes up, your bronchi dilates so you can get better ventilation. Your brain focuses on the event that is stressful and essentially shuts down on almost other kinds of awareness activities. You're focused in this particular direction. Blood pressure goes up. The body generates a lot of hormones that facilitate coagulation should you be injured or cut or bleeding It generates hormones that stimulate inflammation so that the healing process can initiate. It does a whole lot of stuff that are really, really important from a survival basis. And it is a very quickly reactive process. It happens in milliseconds. The parasympathetic system, in distinction, is a slow responsive system. It acts to downregulate blood pressure, to slow the heart rate, to change the way the endocrine system works so that it generates anti-inflammatory mechanisms. It generates all kinds of cognitive processes that alter so that your sphere of awareness broadens. It facilitates memory. It facilitates learning. It facilitates things that are difficult in the event of stress. And so these two components of the system, of the nervous system, are always in some level of balance or imbalance. One of the things that happens with post-traumatic stress disorder in our returning wounded warriors is that the sympathetic system is always living up here. And the parasympathetic system kind of struggles to find a place in life. And what warm water immersion does is to drop that sympathetic system. And so the two come into a comfortable balance, which is essentially the way Mother Nature hopes that we will be able to live our lives, chewing cud in a pasture, as it were. So keeping those in balance is really critical, because if you're living in this heightened escalation of sympathetic systems, a bunch of bad stuff happens. You've got this constant overload of inflammatory processes, and a lot of really knowledgeable and wise physicians and researchers feel that inflammation may be the primal process for most chronic disease, for diabetes, for atherosclerosis, for degenerative joint disease, for arthritis, for chronic stomach issues, for depression, for a lot of things that go on and trouble people throughout a life. So finding the way to keep that down has been a real challenge for medicine. Now, there are medications that do that, but they all have side effects that are problematic. And what Mother Nature offers with immersion is an opportunity to conquer that without side effects. I mean, yes, you get wet, your fingers get wrinkled, but those are pretty nominal side effects.